Steve Merrill back here on WagerTalk TV, breaking down your late night game on national TV tonight on Thursday at 10 o'clock Eastern. Philadelphia at Utah. Sixers remain without Joel Embiid, but they might get Maxey back in the lineup tonight. However, his player prop is not listed at DraftKings. Embiid has been ruled out. Maxey is questionable, so we'll see if he goes or not. And it's probably pretty important whether he goes or not because he had a huge game against Utah 3 weeks ago. These teams played in early January, less than a month ago on January 6th at Philly, and the Jazz pulled the road upset 120 to 109 as a 6.5 point dog. But keep in mind, Joel Embiid did not play in that game either. He did not dress for that game, which means Maxey did a lot of the heavy lifting. In fact, Maxey had 25 points, took 24 field goal attempts, was just 9 for 24 shooting, played 42 minutes. Hard to imagine if he does return, he's going to match those numbers tonight. Obi Jr., by the way, 24 points on 18 shot attempts. Morrison Reed, 15 and 16 points. So it's a similar setup to in which the Jazz won that game but less than a month ago at Philly. So no revenge motive for Utah. Hard to trust the Sixers. They're kind of struggling through this current road trip, shorthanded for several games now. But with that said, they're still one of the more talented teams in the league, but they are off of 4 straight losses, and this will end the 5-game road trip. So you know they want to get a win, but once again, without Embiid out there, it's going to be a tall order. Let's take a look at the total. I actually think that's where the value is in this game. And it did open 233.5. We've seen the line go up to 238. By the way, I would lean towards Utah minus the 4.5, even though there's no revenge motive. Thin air and altitude against a shorthanded Philly team. Whether they get Maxey or not, I think Utah is probably the way to lean on the side. But the over might be worth a look also. Over 238. We've seen a substantial move up to the over. Some of that might be the fact that Maxey's listed as questionable. But I do think this game will have a bit of a playground mentality to it. Philly, on the end of this 5-game road trip, as I mentioned, they just want to get back home, and their defense has been horrendous. They've given up 55% shooting or worse in 3 of the 4 road games in this current series. And I look for Utah team that always shoots well at home to get it done. And keep in mind, the Jazz are coming home off a 6-game road trip. That's one of the reasons I'm a little lukewarm on the side. And I think the total is the better play here. If they come a little bit flat, distractions of returning home with just 1 day off, I think that'll show on the defensive side as well. And Utah, despite winning 2 of their last 4 on that road trip, they did not play good defense in the majority of those games. In fact, 4 of those last 5 road games, they gave up 49% shooting or worse from the field. I look for both defenses to struggle tonight. I think the best way to play this game is Philly and Utah over the 238 points at 10 o'clock Eastern for you on national TV, TNT.
Big game breakdown time here in the NBA today. Cleveland at Memphis. Game open. Cleveland -5, 219. Currently Cleveland up to 8, down to 215. Obviously, the Memphis injury list continues to be absolutely loaded with starters, with reserves, calling people up from G League to come play, to suit up. Question here has to be, can this Memphis energy continue? Head coach Taylor Jenkins said he knows and the team knows what they're up against here. But they come with that effort attitude each and every day. I wonder, though, if that effort and energy can continue working for them, if it's sustainable or not. The Grizzlies, all these starting lineup injuries, as I mentioned earlier, even with those, they went on a 4-0 ATS run recently and then got stopped Monday night by the Sacramento Kings. 104-95, I think, was the final. But the Kings won by 9 is the point, and they did cover. Maybe it was 103-94. And the point to be made in that game was Memphis got off to a great start, 33-18 after 1 quarter. And from then on, the next 3 quarters, they lost 85-61, -24 the last 3 quarters. Tough for Memphis to keep what they had going in the first quarter going against a good playoff type team in Sacramento. Here, they're going to get the surging Cavaliers, their entire starting lineup back healthy now. Their bench healthy. They went through 10 guys in the rotation last night. We'll get to that in a minute. Does the personnel, like it did in the Sacramento game Monday night, override Memphis's grit and energy type attitude at this point? Cleveland did play last night. They're in the second of back-to-back travel. They win 128-121, but the starters' minutes were limited. Donovan Mitchell led the team 35 minutes, 30 seconds, but nobody else played over 31 minutes in that game. Cavs went 10 deep, as I said earlier, to disperse the minutes evenly, and that's quality depth on Cleveland. That's just not guys going out there because they think they have a game in hand, which they didn't. They didn't even cover that game last night, 128, 121. But there was a look ahead, obviously, to this back-to-back spot. I think the depth is likely to be huge here. Memphis doesn't have any of it. So expect the Cavaliers, who kept the minutes down last night, to be fairly fresh in what's generally a bad situation, right? Back-to-back with travel against a team with 2 full days rest. But I don't know if that really works here for Memphis. The matchups are tough. Memphis, again, small in the front court, crushed on the boards by Sacramento the other night, 51-37 for a -14. And they're at a distinct disadvantage here in the interior with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen back together again. Jared Allen recorded his 16th straight double-double last night against Detroit. Look at the Cavs situationally here and what their mindset might be. They're sitting at number 4 in the Eastern Conference standings, 1/2 game ahead of the Sixers, who are 5th. And of course, top 4 get a home floor first round in the playoffs. With Joel Embiid hurt right now, this is a good opportunity for Cleveland to make to create some margin in the standings over Philadelphia and sort of fortify their 4th place spot here. And while they're at it, they're starting to catch the 2 teams ahead of them, the Knicks and the Bucks. So I think the Cavs have to win the winnables. I think that'll be their mindset here. They're obviously on a very hot streak right now, so they're playing good. They've shot 49% or better in 6 of their last 7. To put that in some kind of perspective where Memphis is concerned, they haven't shot 49% but one time, or they didn't shoot it but one time in the entire month of January, which is quite the accomplishment or lack thereof. But their defense for Memphis, they've allowed 49%, 7 of the last 10. Like I said earlier, back-to-back with travel against a rested team usually carries a lot of weight. I don't think it carries that much here since Cleveland limited minutes and since Cleveland has such a huge depth and personnel advantage. So they should be able to grind them down over the course of 48 minutes the way Sacramento did the other night. Sacramento won by 9. Here we got Cleveland laying 8. They're the better team than Sacramento. They're the hotter team than Sacramento. I think we have to go ahead and lay 8 with the Cavs over Memphis.
TNT game tonight, the Lakers and the Celtics. Looking at the WagerTalk live odds page, the Celtics, they are double-digit favorites here. There's 10.5s out there. There is an 11 out there as well. And I'm going to be taking a look at the spread here in this game. The Lakers, I go back to that double overtime game on the road at Golden State. And for a team with guys like Anthony Davis and LeBron James, Anthony Davis, not the most durable guy in the world. LeBron James, obviously getting close to 40 years of age. The amount of minutes that the Lakers played, I was very worried about what would happen to them. Kind of similar to what happened to the in-game tournament, big letdown spots. And sure enough, Golden State was the first game on a road trip, kind of a long road trip. And they come back on Monday, next game, and they lose to Houston 135-119. And then on Tuesday, back-to-back, they lose to Atlanta, who is struggling, and they get boat raced 138-122. So I'm looking at this Lakers team, and it did kind of come to fruition that that double overtime game was a disaster for them, despite the fact that they got the win. So they're still on the road. They're at Boston. And Boston looks like they have fixed their home woes, if you want to call it. They broke their home winning streak, and then they lose to Denver at home. They lose to the Clippers at home, but they come back and they handle their business against the Pelicans. And then the back-to-back on Tuesday, they have a 5-point win against the Pacers, which was a nice win for them. So what do we do with this game? I'm looking at the Lakers to cover this spread, actually. I like that Anthony Davis did not play in that Tuesday game. So you're going to get a full Anthony Davis performance. I know LeBron James played in that Tuesday game, but it's a nationally televised game that I'm sure that the Lakers are not going to want to lay an egg at. And even though that the Boston Celtics have won their last couple of home games, they were not by wide margin. Against the Pelicans, that game was only 118-112. Against the Pacers, that game was only 129-124. Before that at home, they lost to the Clippers. Their home game before that, they lost to the Denver Nuggets. So this is a team that has not been really hammering teams at home, and it makes sense. This is the middle of the season, and wins are important, but you don't need to go out and win by margin each and every night. So this is such a big number, and when we're looking at the standings, I mean, Boston is really, really pulling away in the Eastern Conference. So the Lakers are definitely not pulling away. They are struggling to get inside to the play-in tournament or even in the playoffs. So I'm looking at the urgency factor, and it's going to be there with the Lakers. So it's a nationally televised game. Anthony Davis has had plenty of rest, and the Lakers have the urgency kind of factor here. And Boston has not been really hammering teams at home. So I like the Los Angeles Lakers to cover this 10.5 point spread. My best bet is actually going to be the Lakers over 113.5 as their team total. Over the last 10 games, they are number one in pace. They are the number one team getting up and down the court. And I think that's going to play out tonight. And when we look at some of their team totals, even the last couple games against Houston, a game they lost, they put up 119. Against Atlanta, a game they lost, they put up 122. Of course, they had the double overtime game. Before that, against Chicago, they put up 141. And even against the Clippers, a great defensive team, they put up 116. I think the pace is going to get them to this total. I think this game is going to be a little bit close, and I don't see a blowout situation where the starters are sitting in the fourth quarter. I think this is a close game throughout. And when I'm looking at the Boston Celtics team total sitting at like 126, that just feels like way too many points. But I like this Lakers team to put up points. If you're a same game parlay better, I would look at Anthony Davis alt rebounds. You can get him at 10 plus rebounds on the alt line at minus 270. And then if you like a spread, like I do like the Boston Celtics to win the game. So maybe you could take a spread about maybe -3 on the Celtics and pair that with Anthony Davis to have 10 plus rebounds. Davis only had 7 rebounds against Houston, but he only played 29 minutes. Before that, he had gone over this total in 8 straight games. He's averaging 11.4 rebounds this month. So I like Anthony Davis to do something with a rebound prop, but best bet is going to be the Lakers over 113.5. I like the Lakers to cover this big spread, and if you're a same game parlay better, I would look for maybe the Celtics money line and pair that with an Anthony Davis rebounding prop. So as your big game breakdown, that is your best bet. Good luck on all your plays. We'll see you over later.
Steve Merrill back with a free NBA play for you tonight on Thursday. Just 4 games on the board, but I think the first game actually has a little bit of value at 7:30 Eastern between the Pacers and Knicks. Going to look at that for you in just a moment. Quick reminder, though, now is the time to get on board my all sports. Hey, look, I'm number one in basketball, college and pro basketball. I'm number one units one since the start of the season in October. I do have a strong college basketball best bet going tonight on Thursday. Also, a bonus free play. Check out the free play as well tonight on my page. If you want just the single game tonight, it's 25. The free play is 0, so it's not a bad offer. However, the best deal is to make money and save money at the same time with the Super Bowl to Super Bowl special, which is currently available. It gets you every sport, football, baseball, and basketball from next Sunday's Super Bowl through the following Super Bowl, February 9th, 2025. But here's the added bonus. If you sign up right now, you get the next 10 days and nights included for free. You don't have to wait to start till Super Bowl Sunday. You get the next 10 days and nights included for free, including tonight's strong college basketball best bet. Single game tonight is 25, or if you get that all sports special, it works out to just $23 a week, not per play, per week. That's just over $3 a day, just over $1 a play for every football, baseball, and basketball best bet for the next 365 plus the next 10 days included for free. Don't delay. Check it out right now. No promo code needed. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. All right, let's look at that free NBA opinion tonight. Goes at 7:30 Eastern. Take a look at the New York Knicks -2.5. The under also might have some value in this game. It opened 241, heavy sharp money to the 236. Julius Randle is out for the 3rd straight game. Yet the Knicks are still a 2.5-point favorite, and they haven't missed Randle. You know, I've talked about it a lot on the shows over the past several months. I think Randle is a vastly overrated superstar, quote unquote. Jalen Brunson is the star in this team, and that's why the Knicks did the 2-for-1 trade with Toronto a month ago. They're trying to open up some cap space, in my opinion, to load up with a superstar next year because Randle is not the answer. So not a surprise that the Knicks are a perfect 2-0 straight up at ATS the last 2 games without Randle in the lineup. In fact, they've been impressive wins by 21 and 15-point margins the last 2 games. And I don't see anything changing tonight. They should be focused against Indiana. The Knicks have a revenge motive from a loss just over a month ago, December 30th. They lost by 14 at Indiana. In that game, by the way, Randle did have 28 points. He had a huge game. I'm well aware of that. But Brunson also had 28 points. DiVincenzo had 38 points. So they got plenty of firepower here. And I like the Knicks minus the 2.5 tonight against an Indiana team which is struggling defensively. They've always been a fast-paced team all season. They're looking to play slower now, but they're still not stopping their opposing opponents. In fact, if you look back over the last 10 games, They've allowed 50% shooting or worse in 8 of those last 10 games, and they're currently just 3-4 straight up their last 7, and even worse, just 4-6 those last 10 in which they've given up 50% shooting or worse in 8 of the 10. So I don't think anything's changed defensively. They're traveling with just 1 day rest. Look for the Knicks here, minus a 2.5. I did lean under also in this game, but once again, a little bit of a concern with that Indiana defense. And by the way, this total is about 12 points lower than when they played a month ago. It was 248, and it's soared over that total. So that's enough to keep me off the total. But I do think the Knicks minus 2.5 is worth a look on the side tonight at 7:30 Eastern. Now, once again, that's a light lean only. There's only 4 NBA games tonight. Nothing was strong enough to be a personal best bet, but I do have a strong college basketball best bet tonight. Also, a free college basketball play that just missed the cut on my page as an added bonus. Tonight's game is 25, or get that all sports special for just $3 a day, just over $1 a play. No promo code needed. And if you sign up right now, you get the next 10 days and nights included for free. It's the Super Bowl to Super Bowl special, but you also get the next 10 days and nights of all sports included for free. Don't delay. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. Get there quicker with shortcut code WT.buzz/SM.
Today's NBA best bet part of the show. And for the best bet, we're going to look to Utah Sixers at the Jazz tonight. Jazz open 4-point favorites, 233.5 the total. Currently, Jazz up to 5. 237.5, I think, is the most recent number that I saw. A couple of straight 238s out there as well. So the total's gone up. I think that's somewhat part and due to Tyrese Maxey. We'll talk about that in a second here. But the game situation for both of these teams, let's take a look. Philadelphia's in their 5th game. It's the final game of a 5-game road trip. Good spot for fatigue to set in, especially for a team like the Sixers that's been banged up. It'll be the 3rd game on this 5-game road trip where they have not had Joel Embiid at starting center. They do figure to have Tyrese Maxey back for this one. Reports I read said he was real close to going the other night. Figure to have him back here. It's kind of interesting because just on general theory, NBA teams with a starter who has sat this length of time on a road trip won't bring him back for the final game of the road trip. But it looks like Maxey will play here. Maybe they want to get him back into form before they get back home. Utah, on the other hand, they're in their first game back home after a long 6-game, 11-day road trip. The trip took its toll. You can tell by just watching in the last 2 games of that trip. They played Brooklyn and New York. They gave up 147 to Brooklyn, lost that game by 33, and then got pounded by 15 by the Knicks. For Utah, I think fatigue just set in. That was a long, like I say, a couple of time zones crossed through that trip. So back home now with a day's worth of rest. There's some matchup advantages here that Utah can utilize. And let's start just with the interior. Without Joel Embiid, the Sixers are small. Paul Reed, their starting center, goes 6'10". The only other guy they have of that height, if we're not looking at Furk and Korkmaz, the only other guy that they have at that height is Mo Bamba, who doesn't even play. Generally speaking, he's a DNP, coach's decision. For the most part, he's played 1 time on this road trip, got 19 minutes in garbage time against the Blazers when the Sixers got blown out. The Sixers have been out-rebounded in every single game on this trip, and that doesn't bode well because Utah's the number 1 rebounding team in the NBA. The Sixers are only 23rd in rebounding, and that's an overall season number that includes Joel Embiid playing 34 games. So you get the distinction here between how well and how unwell these teams rebound. Sixers not very good at it. Jazz very good at it. Obviously, the Jazz have a lot of lengthy guys, a couple that come off the bench, Walker Kessler, Kelly Olynyk, energy guys at that height. A lot of rebounds, a lot of speed. And the Jazz, I mentioned speed because they're a really good fast break team. You check these fast break numbers. Utah ranks number 9 in the NBA in fast break efficiency. And the 76ers are the league's worst team in fast break defensive efficiency. So the Jazz want to run. The Sixers don't stop it. The Jazz can rebound. The Sixers can't rebound. There's a couple of matchups here that can really be exploited by Utah in this game. I want to take a quick look here at Utah's point scoring this year because we're going to play over 121.5 as a team total in this matchup. And while we look at the Jazz point scoring, we'll look at what the Sixers are allowing currently without Embiid or partially without Embiid. Prior to the tail end of that road trip where they got fatigued, I just talked about that. The Jazz in the first 4 games on that road swing had scored 134, 123, 124, and 126, all better than the 121.5 we're asked to lay here tonight in this team total price. So they still have the high octane offense rolling. Philly In this 4-game road trip, they gave up 134 to Indiana without Tyrese Halliburton. They gave up 130 to Portland. They gave up 119 the other night to Golden State with Joel Embiid playing 30 minutes. And if he hadn't played, certainly Golden State's going to get over 121 and a half. They already had 119 facing Embiid. And Embiid even played in the Indiana game where they gave up 134. The defense hasn't been good for Philadelphia. Again, they're smallish. If we look at the Jazz at home this season, this month, or the month of January, because we're in February now. In January, they played 7 home games. All 7 games, the Jazz scored over 121 and a half. Jazz at home this season overall, 124 points per game. Jazz at home this season as a favorite, it's only happened 7 times. They're averaging 132.7 points per game as a home favorite, and none of those games went overtime. So the number isn't skewed by some double or triple overtime game. Jazz have been really good at scoring points at home. I think the metrics, the matchups, the current state of the Sixers all add up here to the Jazz scoring. Hey, the Sixers might score with them if Maxey plays, but if Maxey plays, the tempo gets faster. We get even more opportunities to score here. Really quick, I'll just end it on a quote from head coach Will Hardy, who basically said, "I'm excited that we get home and have a practice. Just get back to work and do some of the things that are hard to do when you're on a long road trip. It's time to get back to Utah. Team's happy to be back home." From a side perspective, we don't like to bet these teams in their first home game after a long road trip, but I don't mind betting their team total over in what should be a high scoring game. As I mentioned, the total's been pumped up now to 237 and a half, 238. We're going to play Utah at home, their team total over 121 and a half.